was. Ladies and gentlemen, will you truly feel that you did the right thing when the entire world is telling you that this is your fault? When the entire world is telling your child that it is their fault and their mother's fault? When the entire world is constantly suffering and you know it is your choice to keep it that way? It is quite uncharitable for government whip to say that there is no interest for the mother to be happy in this new world. Because let's be clear, what government essentially subscribes to is pessimistic and nihilistic view of the world. And I understand that it might be the current predisposition of the mother in the world she is living in right now. But if she at the very least loves her son, then we think on up she is capable of hoping for a new world where the problems of today may be solved for tomorrow. There is a tension in government's case that my deputy pointed out that I don't think they have responded to all that well. Why that one extra day of life is more important for you and the child, even if you know that day may be the worst day of your life? My partner clearly said that it is especially since the probability of bad things is happening is 100%. Government seems to not know what frame they should choose. Is the world that bad wherein society is 100% unfixable? Or is it also just good enough so that the mother can choose to live the rest of her days in relative happiness? It's this contradiction in their line of logic that makes them lose this debate. A mother's duty is to give the best possible life for their child. And I think our side has made it clear that her life, and more importantly, her child's life, will be far, far worse in a world where we don't give our consent. Death will be inevitable, and happiness and a deep sense of joy is unlikely in this corrupted world. And government has to concede that life will be terrible in this current state of the world. And they need to respond to the pushes we give on the externalities, and they failed. And pressures given by society, which may make you make you or your child lose any chance to go down on their own way. Government spends strongest intuition and principle is why would the other people give a shit and have to make this big ass sacrifice. Note that this only works in a vacuum outside reality. But we need to ground this debate in the world where it operates. That is to say, sure, in a vacuum, a mother in all instances would want to preserve consent and dignity and life, but government fails to understand that unlocking all that societal benefit comes downstream of preserving the best interest of their child. As what Joseph said, the mother's interest is twofold. The minority is her own interest and self-preservation, but the majority instances is her own child's well-being. Yes, it's fucking ironic, death over a shit life, but just think about it. Many mothers choose to abort if they know their child would be a vegetable and paralyzed. In this debate, yes, your child is normal, but the world is damned, and it's going to be damned in all cases when your child is fucking alive. So the POI of Jaron to government which pushes our principles so much farther. Mothers who chose an abortion is a valid thing to do, especially where there are external circumstances that affect their birth. Joseph talks about instances about the child has a minimal chance of survival, and Jaron POI about being born in a dangerous, dirty, war-torn, painful, torn world. These are God fails to weigh this principle. There are tough and painful choices, but they are valid because the counterfactual is fucking suffering for the child, and the mother has not to be selfish. Government thinks that our case is a genuflection to arbitrary morality, and they misrepresent Jaron and say it's all about being Mother Mary. That is completely untrue. The standard we have is simply what is best for the child and the mother, and there are instances where we choose what is hard, and contrary to popular belief, things can get worse, and the world can be even worse than it already is when you keep your child alive. So what was the first exchange, and how did Joseph exactly win this? Both sides of life will be, one thing that Joseph said is both sides of life will be terrible in both worlds. But at the very least, in our world, we create a better chance of hope and something to go up at some point. In their world, it will constantly be downstream and will only go downstream from external and internal factors. We are actually able to have more autonomy when we give our consent in our world. You don't go down on your own terms when you don't consent, because if you don't do it, it's like the world and society will take it from you. Your mother can be taken away, and there can be spillover effects of all those mother things that they blame on their mother to their children to feel that. Guilt will not only be in society, but also your guilt will come from making your child's life worse, just worse on average, because the child is just left in this corrupted and destroyed world. And how did opposition exactly respond? Well, you say, oh, when you kill this child, consent and make this child cured. The child's death is your fault. But at the same time, you keeping your child alive is also your fault for them having a fucking bad life, and every other mother's child having a bad life too. It's not just you, it's every single mother's children being terrible life. It's your fault. And I'm telling you, that idea of if your child, and they tell us, oh, if your child dies, you will hate society. Guys, if society sucks and everyone hates you, you're going to hate society even more than as is. Because as I said, even if you keep your child alive, all right, society is going to fucking hate you, and you already conceded to that. Why would you be happier in your world when you are constantly being hated and shitted on by society? We gave you the alternative through Jaron's extension on how it makes your child immortalized and remembered. We're not saying that Jesus and be a god. No, we are saying that is such a mischaracterization. What we're saying is we are now getting possibilities of comfort. People telling you that you did the right thing. They are no longer being constantly guilt-tripped. And in our world, things can only get better as opposed to their world. So how did you respond to this? Oh, it's we don't care about being God. You did not properly respond to that. We take all the negative, and in their world, at the very least in our world, we get to choose when to die. And at the same time, there's no promise of catharsis that they keep trying to sacrifice. It's not necessarily true, because there is no catharsis if your child dies early because of this corrupted world. There is no catharsis if your child is constantly hated for his entire life. There is no catharsis if your child lives a long life and realizes they suck. There is no catharsis if your CIA takes your child and forces them to die, because there are so many ways these catharsis disappears. You will constantly feel pain and constantly stuck in this world. At the very least, in our world, where we change this idea and sacrifice the child, it can only get better for you, and you made that best decision for you and everyone and the child. Thanks.